Are you ready to think big and act bold? Then you are in the right place. This is Innovative Entrepreneurs, a podcast that will bring you the stories, insights, and tips from some of the most successful and innovative entrepreneurs in the world. I am your host, Erica Bailey, and I am here to help you start, scale, and sustain your own entrepreneurial journey. Let's get started. Today, I have a very special guest with me, very close to my heart. He is a veteran direct response copywriter and a marketing strategist who has helped many of the world's leading companies, thought leaders, and entrepreneurs generate $5 million in sales, all through his persuasive copy. He is also the author of a Wise Guys Copywriting Handbook. It's a best-selling book that teaches how to write compelling marketing messages that sell. An Amazon international bestseller, and was voted number 9 of the best 100 copywriting books ever written by Book Authority. He is the founder of the Copy Avengers, a team of copywriters who help businesses with their marketing challenges. He has published in trade magazines, USA Today, The Wall Street Journal, and Entrepreneur Magazine. He is known as Tony Stark Policci because that is really his name. And he's here to share his insights and secrets on how to write copy that converts. Hey, Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, Erica. Thanks so much for having me on. This is going to be exciting.
This is going to be fun. So just so everybody knows, Tony and I have been working together for years. Yeah. What was interesting is we lived 5 miles away from each other and had no idea until recently. So Tony is one of my closest friends. I truly believe he is brilliant. He is a mentor. Tony is very impressive. So I'm excited to talk to you today, Tony. Let's get started.
Yeah, and this is awesome. Thanks, Erica.
First off, Tony Stark Policci. Tell me about that.
Okay, so the name, here's the interesting thing. So you know this, but my real name, my birth name, I shouldn't say my real name, Tony Stark Policci is my real name, but my birth name was Tony Polish, all right? My younger brother is a guy named Joe Polish, and that is how I got into the marketing business. Joe and I started together. But when I was 14, I heard that our immigrant name was actually Policci. And at the time, I was being teased about being a Polak and a Polish sausage and all this other stuff. And I thought, when I'm old enough, I'm going to change my name back to my original Italian name. So I did that. And so from 18 forward, I was Tony Policci, our original Italian name. Joe never changed his.
Okay.
Now, when the Iron Man movie came out in 2008, all the kids at church started calling me Tony Stark because I was wearing my beard like that.
Yeah.
And I kind of, look like Robert Downey Jr. So it stuck, and it motivated me to try and just move more into this superhero kind of style. Right now, The best part is, unfortunately had a terrible marriage that did end, which was a good thing. And a while after that, I met a lady and fell in love with her, and she's truly my soulmate. And guess what? On our first date, I found out her maiden name is Stark. So I came home and I told my kids, hey, but did you know Donna's last name was Stark? And they were like, no. I said, yeah. And my son Michael was like, Dad, if you marry her, would you really be Tony Stark? And I was like, well, it doesn't kind of work that way. Usually the woman takes the guy's name. But, I thought about it. And when we got married, I just added her name to mine. So my legal name is Tony Stark Policci, and fate kind of just brought that to my lap. So I ran with it.
All right, you got to Google him, because honest to God, you'll see some pictures and you'll be like, what? Tony is Tony Stark. I mean, it's amazing. And that's where you came up with the Copy Avengers, right?
That's correct. Absolutely.
Awesome. So, Tony, you have a very interesting history. Will you share with us kind of your journey, which brought you here today?
Sure. Well, okay. So when I first got into marketing and copywriting, it was while I was pursuing a career as a professional actor. So both my brother Joe and I, it's really no secret, we both had addiction issues. We had come out of these addictions. We were working our way into, being productive members of society. And Joe had a carpet cleaning business, which I was helping with, but I really wanted to be an actor. And so I was studying marketing, and Joe got this thing called the Gary Halbert newsletter. And he brought it to me one day and said, read this. And I read it and I was like, wow, that's amazing. He's like, I'm going to subscribe to it. And I said, okay. It was 8 pages, it was like 4 11 by 17 pages, black, folded in half. And I said, cool, how much is it? He said, $197 a year. I was like, what? Are you out of your freaking mind? Forbes was like, what, $12, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So, that's my mindset at the time. I had no concept of what actual good information was like, but I read this letter and I started implementing some of the things in this letter. The first thing that I did was I approached a local photographer and I said, I'll write you a great ad if you'll do headshots for me. And that ad brought in like 32 customers at $300 a piece. And she was delighted to do my headshot session for me. But I went and pursued my career as an actor. And I did a year of professional theater, did a few world premieres. I was on my way to LA when things kind of shifted in my life, and I got stuck here in Arizona. And my dad said, why don't you go help your brother Joe? Now, Joe had just started this little company that he was calling Piranha Marketing and only had a half a dozen clients. And I went down there and we built that thing together. So that is kind of how I got my start. I spent my time listening to Dan Kennedy tapes and all of these great marketing tapes and going to seminars. And I eventually met all of these legends and worked with them. Dan Kennedy, Gary Hubbard, Ted Nicholas, Brian Keith Foyles, Jay Conrad Levison, like all of these, legendary gurus. I mean, these are the guys that I kind of grew up and cut my teeth with. And Joe and I built Piranha Marketing into literally the top marketing consultant agency for the cleaning industry. And I went on from there to do consulting with a lot of other people because I was in these great masterminds, things that, cost $10,000 a year, $20,000 a year. I was far above my, $197 for a newsletter is too expensive mentality.
Yeah.
And I stayed with Joe's company for 6 years. We built that up, and then I left due to personal circumstances. My ex-wife had some real serious issues. So she wound up getting institutionalized, and I had to leave to go raise our kids. And that's how I got to my own company.
That's pretty impressive. I just have to point out, he said he listened to tapes. Does anybody out there know what tapes are? Tony, I love your tapes.
Cassettes, man. Cassettes, baby.
I bet you if we put a picture up on Instagram, nobody would know what it is. Yeah. Okay, so talk to me about what was your why? What made you take that leap into your own company? What was that why? Because, as a business owner and an entrepreneur, we really need a why and a vision in order to achieve, our goals and our legacy, right? So for you, Tony, what was your why?
Well, after building Piranha Marketing with my brother, my primary role there was I was doing consulting and ad critiques for our clients. I did over 3,000 different ad critiques. So I spent an awful lot of time on the phone going through people's ads. And in the process, I was writing copy. Our mother was a writer, so that was something that I just naturally had kind of an attraction towards. And so I started studying copywriting. Now, my why really, comes down to the fact that I had these circumstances in my life, and I was used to running a business, and I was vice president of Piranha Marketing, and I couldn't see myself going and being an employee somewhere. But the circumstances of my life really dictated the fact that I needed to figure something out on my own. When my wife was institutionalized, my kids were 18 months and 3 months old. My hands were full, right? So I'm like, I've got to figure out some way to support these kids without going away for 8 hours a day, for 8 hours a week, whatever. And so I reached out to everybody that I knew. Hey, do you need any copywriting done? And that's basically how it started. So my why then and always has been my family and the ones that I love. I put my family first above everything all the time. And while that may have impacted the amount of income that I created, it may have impacted the amount of fame that I generated for myself, I have solid relationship with all my kids today. Like, amazing, right? One of my boys just called me while you were just before we started, and I said, "Hey, I'm doing a podcast right now. I got to call you back." But even I didn't tell you this other part. I had 2 stepsons at the time, and they were.
Your wife had kids, right?
Yeah, and I raised them from 7 and 3, and at the time they were 14 and I think 8 or 9, and so I have relationships with all of these kids. Like One's in Madrid, Spain, one's in Washington. They come visit, on the holidays. So that's my why.
Isn't one of your sons an actor?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Is he the one that's in Spain, or is he the one that's here?
The one in Spain is a professional musician. He has he's a phenomenal musician. I mean, he doesn't piddle around. I mean, the guy composes stuff. He's amazing. My second stepson, my younger stepson, is also a musician in Washington, but that's not his primary income source. My second to youngest is a model and a musician. He's killing it as a model. I don't know where he got those good looks, and then my son Devin is the youngest, and he's the one in LA, and he was a phenomenal actor here in Arizona. Super talented, way more talented than me. He can dance, sing, act. He's a triple threat.
What I love is that, Tony, you saw the souls of your children, and you helped them grow into their greatest potential, right? Oh, I love that about you, because you take that and you put that love and dedication into your work. And I know personally that, that you do that. Is there somewhere we can listen to your son's music?
Yes, absolutely. It's not a website, but I know that it's on Spotify. His name is David Burnett II. I don't know if there's something you can post after the fact on this interview, but I can certainly put that link there, and it's phenomenal.
We would love to hear him. Absolutely. Love to hear him. Now, Tony, you wrote one of my favorite books that I didn't talk about in the beginning, and it's actually one that I resonate really well with because I live down the street, and you wrote it for your kids or with your kids, right?
Right. All right.
Tell me about that story.
So the story is called Fishing on the Football Field, and it is a true story of something that happened when I was living in Chandler. And we lived in this nice little gated community, and it was about just a 2-minute walk from the boys' school. They could walk down the street, out the gate into the park, and across the field to their school. And so they'd always go over there and play. And one day my son came to me, he's like, "Dad, there's fish on the football field." And I'm in the garage working on this Saturday. I'm like, "What?"
This is a true story, everybody.
This is a true story. Absolutely. Yeah. And he's like, "There's fish on the football field." And I'm like, as parents, sometimes you think, well, I just not understanding what my kid's saying, right? So I'm like, just show me. So I go walking over there, and okay, so the school apparently is on what's called County Island out here, and they do irrigation, right? Rather than send sprinklers, they have, water comes through the canals and it floods the land, and it saturates it. So what had happened was, they were irrigating the football field, all of the school, fields, and there was a foot, and in some places more, of water, and they were just filled with fish, carp and perch, and I was like, I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Look at that park taking a fish.
They must have somehow gotten to the canal, they must have gotten through some kind of filter or barrier or something, and come through with the irrigation water. So I ran home and I got a few of those Home Depot buckets, and we started rescuing as many fish as we could find alive. And the next day we set them free in one of the community lakes here. But so my son and I went, after that happened, a couple of days later, I sat down and said, let's write this story. So this was in 2010. All right. So Devin and I sat down, and he was 10 years old. We wrote this story. And then I tried to get somebody to illustrate it, but back in those days, the Fiverr and all of it wasn't quite as easy to find talent. So I went to artists that I knew, and I had 3 different people say they wanted to do it, and they got started, and then nothing would happen for months. And literally 2 years went by, and it just got shelved. And then what I decided to do was I went on, I don't know, one of the sites where I hired an artist who did a phenomenal job. We illustrated it, and I published it on my son's 21st birthday. So that was Devin's 11 years later. We published the book called, Fishing on the Football Field. And it's, you can get a copy on Amazon or Adventures with Dad Books, I think. I don't know what the URL is, but yeah. Anyway, it's a true story. People love it. And it inspired me to create a whole series. I've got a whole series of books called Adventures with Dad because, as I mentioned before, their mom had some problems. So my boys and I were like thick as thieves growing up, and we have a lot of adventures. So I've got a whole series of the things that we did that in the works.
Absolutely love it. And it is really a cute story. I mean, my 5-year-old and I read it together often because
I love that.
Right down the street, you know what I mean? But yeah, he loves it. He thinks it's fantastic, and we do read it often. So what I love about it, Tony, is it's real. You know what I mean? It's very sweet. So, and I don't normally like promote people's, books or URLs, but for Tony, I'm going to tell you everything and anything you can get from him because he's one of my guys. So,
oh wow, I'm honored. Well, the money for that book, we do donate it to charity. So, that's one of the commitments for that book right there.
He's a very kind man. All right, so let's get back into the details here. I needed to share that story. So let's talk about challenges. Like, what was the biggest challenge and what was the biggest opportunity for you during this entrepreneurial journey?
Okay, so raising a family is quite a challenge, as you know. I do some other trainings, and oftentimes I get this question, how do you balance it all? And I was like, well, first of all, I don't have that. I didn't have that figured out. I kind of figured it out as I went. And some days it wasn't balanced. You're juggling all these balls, and sometimes you drop them all. But you try not to drop the precious ones, right? Like the human lives. So as long as you don't drop those balls, everything else will take care of itself, I guess. But okay, some of the challenges. Number one, it was trying to manage. In the beginning, one of my sons, Devin, was colicky. So while he was awake, the other one was asleep. Well, the other one was asleep, he was awake. And I, for the first month or two, I hardly slept and I was losing my mind. So I learned to reach out for help. All right. And then learning to schedule my time as my boys grew. Their mom was in and out of the house. She had her issues and all that stuff, but trying to balance taking care of a household. You got to keep the lights on, right? You got to do your marketing. It's like this, all of these things. So it's managing time. I used to be much better at time management when I was an active parent than I am now. I don't know why that is. It seems like as life goes on, we should get better at these things. 10,000 hours and all, right? But yeah, I think that for me, the biggest challenge was trying to, be a dad first and foremost, and also run a business. And the thing about copywriting is I work primarily, since I left Corona Marketing, as an independent consultant, right? Freelancer. So getting into one very big project that is all consuming means that some of the things fall through the cracks, like marketing, okay? There were one of classic example when I was Dean Graziosi's marketing consultant and copywriter. That account was so all-consuming, I literally didn't send a newsletter to my list for 4 years, and by the time I got back around to it, most of those people had fallen off, we haven't heard from you in 4 years. Who are you? So, and doing your own marketing, it is a challenge to put on the different hats and use things. So nowadays there are different resources, virtual assistants were not as prevalent, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. There's a lot of new automation tools and software and things that we have that can help take care of some of these time-consuming tasks. So if I had to sum it up, I would say managing time, taking care of priorities, and making sure that what matters most is taken care of.
And those were your kids.
Yeah, those were my kids. One of the reasons that I started the Copy Avengers was because as a copywriter, I went through times of feast and famine, right?
Yes.
So it's, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that, when you're feasting, if somebody brings you some more food and you're already full, it's like, I can't handle that right now. And we don't think about, hey, I've got to eat in another week, or I've got to eat in another 6 months. I'm like, I'm so busy eating right now. Just put that back in the fridge. Marketing so that you have a steady flow of, ready to work with you prospects and clients. Those are the things that are essential, and having a system to make sure that the marketing machine keeps running is a vital piece of a successful business.
Well said. I mean, we're a marketing company and we had the same problem. Tony and I have a lot of the same, we work with a lot of the same clients. And, I can't say how much I love his copy. Like, it is out of the box awesome. Tony, do you think your acting experience has any impact on the way you're able to identify and communicate with these different audiences?
Personally, 100%. I think so. I don't know if someone else would say that, but as an actor, I was trained in method acting, right? The Meisner method. And I became consumed by the character that I was portraying. As a marketer and a copywriter, it is essential to understand your audience. Like, if you do not know who you are talking to, it doesn't matter if you're giving away $100 bills, right? I mean, if your audience are billionaires, chances are they probably aren't going to care if you're giving away, unless you're giving away $10,000 notes or something. But as developing a character as an actor, going through a character analysis, you create a vivid life, an imaginary life for this person that you're portraying. Sometimes it's not even imaginary. If you're portraying somebody that's real, you're based on actual events and things that they did and attitudes and stuff. It's the same with building an avatar or a customer profile. So having that ability to create a character and really tap into the emotions is essential. Like, effective acting is not pretending, it's believing, So when people say, well, you're an actor, you're just pretending, like, well, that's not the best kind of actor, because those kind of actors don't make you feel anything.
Yes.
An actor that's believing, they come out on stage and you're afraid or you're crying. It happens on the screen when that is authentically really going on. So that's a long answer to your short question. I'm sorry, I tend to ramble on at times.
You can talk all day. Don't worry about it. And I agree with you, Tony. I mean, personally, I think that you really do invest in not only the client and understanding who they are, what their needs are, putting you, in their shoes. You can resonate with that audience because you will literally become them to understand how to communicate with them. And so, that's one of the things I love and respect about you.
I appreciate it. Now, I do want to add one other thing, though. In college, my major was psychology before I changed it to theater. And I kind of discovered that on my recovery journey. Like, it's an interesting story, which I won't tell here, but the combination of really digging in and understanding human beings, a lot of that I also exercised in the process of recovering from addiction. Therapy and 12-step groups and stuff like that. So that combined with the acting give me kind of like a 1-2 punch when it comes to writing copy. To be super effective, if you understand human psychology, why we do the things that we do, the emotions that drive us, and you can understand how to build a profile of a person based on what they read, where they go, what they say, who they pay attention to, what they buy. Man, it's like a slam dunk combination of being able to really write a message where they read and go, this guy's talking about me. Yes. Or, this is talking about me. This is me. They understand me. And that's when the money starts rolling in.
Based on data and analytics, Tony has one of the best open and click-through rates I've ever seen in business. So why don't you share with us maybe some best practices and principles for writing copy that sells?
Okay, well, understand your audience. That's the first one. You got to understand the pain points, what motivates them, what language they use. You got to understand and tailor your message to their needs and desires. That's primary. Mm-hmm. And then I think the next thing would be you have to use clear, concise language, right? You got to avoid jargon and complex language. These are best practices. Now, there's some cases where you would veer from that. If you're writing to a group that's almost cultish-like, avid golfers, okay? Golf is certainly not a cult, but avid golfers, like, they're really crazy about their equipment and everything. So you might use jargon and, words that they use, the vernacular that they use. But typically when you're writing to larger audiences, Your goal is to communicate your message clearly and as quickly as possible. And then you want to focus on benefits, not features, right? Features are important, okay? What truly sells is how those features benefit the customer. The old saying, sell the sizzle, not the steak. It's you got to explain how your product or service solves a problem or fulfills a need, okay? So I'll give you a simple example that most people will understand. So carpet cleaning, there's a few different methods of carpet cleaning. There's like foam extraction, there's hot water extraction, and there's even this stuff that looks like sawdust that you throw in the carpet. So those are features, okay? The benefit of a hot water extraction is, it will kill all of the bacteria and it will pull the dirt and everything from deep down in the carpet fibers. The benefit of foam extraction is it dries quicker. Foam and the sawdust stuff, it goes on and it doesn't leave your carpet soaked. So, benefits and features. Headlines. You got to craft a strong headline. I mean, back in the days when people read newspapers, and those of you that don't know what cassettes are probably won't remember a newspaper either, but you might. Headlines, the first thing that draws people in, right? It's what grabs their attention. That's the subject line in your emails, right? That's the first few words of your text, of your social post. It's got to be a strong, compelling headline. The call to action. Every piece of copy needs to have some kind of action. It could be purchasing a product. It could be signing up for a newsletter. It could be getting a lead magnet, sharing a post on social media. But whatever it is, you have to have a clear, strong call to action for what you want the reader to do. And then social proof, which is, your department, one of your departments. Testimonials, reviews, case studies can be powerful persuasion tools. You have to provide proof that your product or service works and, helps build trust with your audience. There's another saying that I talk to people, what you say can be powerful, but what others say about you is 100 times more powerful, right? If you've seen these ads, we've been in business for 25 years. So what? All that shows is that you survived, okay? But if you have a client that is, their testimonial says, for 25 years, I have trusted Joe Bob's blah, 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 and I have tried other companies. I have veered away and made bad decisions and regretted it. For 25 years, they have never let me down. I would highly recommend them. If I could stick around for another 25 years, there's a big difference between the company saying, we've been in business for 25 years, and a testimonial talking about what that 25 years meant. And that is a good segue to the next point, which is tell a story, right? People connect with stories, not sales pitches. You got to use storytelling to engage your audience emotionally and illustrate how your product and service fits into that customer's life. And then you have to create a sense of urgency. If people feel like they might miss out, they're more likely to act quickly. Limited time offers, limited quantities, those kinds of things increase a sense of urgency. And the fact of the matter is, we're talking about psychology again, is most of us are at the core slugs. Like we don't want to move our butts off the couch. It's like we'll delay, we'll procrastinate, we'll, doubt, there's skepticism. So finding a compelling way to create a sense of urgency is essential when you're selling and when you're marketing. And then, of course, you got to test and optimize, test and optimize. People, what works for one audience or what promotion may not work for somebody else or another audience. You always got to test different versions of your copy. When I was working with Dean, we were doing these 3-hour previews where they would go into different towns and do 3-hour real estate previews. I could be wrong in the number. It was somewhere in the range of 21 to 28 different versions of landing pages that we tested. And, we would, over a period of 6 months, we would move and change things. And we got the conversion rate to 86% on those landing pages. And we were doing $1 million a week in sales. And that's phenomenal. This is in 2011, 2012, much different online world. I mean, if anybody listening to this realizes the kinds of tools and analytics and things that were available to, like, it is a night and day difference what we have now. There was no retargeting, the little pixel thing, that stuff wasn't around, or at least if it wasn't as prevalent. And then last but not least, I guess, or maybe this should have been first, but be authentic. Consumers are skeptical and it's just getting worse. You got to avoid overhyped language. You got to be honest about your product, what it can do and what it can't do. You have to build trust with your audience. And that is really the essential ingredient. People do business with those that they know, like, and trust.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they become brand ambassadors, right? Because
that's
they
right.
Like, trust. So, then they'll refer their friends, or they'll suggest it. And people are more likely to buy or to engage if their friends like or follow or have a product, right? So that's where that authenticity comes from.
Right.
If you scroll back or rewind back about 3 or 4 minutes, you can hear Tony literally came up with a script like that. It just comes to his mind. So, it's pretty impressive. So, Tony, what about mistakes or pitfalls that copywriters should avoid? We talked about what they need to have, but what should they avoid?
When it comes to writing copy or in their career, I just want to clarify who I'm talking to.
See? You are awesome, Tony. Let's talk about writing copy.
When it comes to writing copy, all of the things that I just listed are really essential, but it's easy right now to have information overload, okay? Consumers are inundated with information and advertisements on a daily basis. And so the challenge is to make your message stand out from the crowd and gain attention of, the potential clients and customers. So be careful that you don't go through information overload when you're trying to write things. And another pitfall that I see people doing is they try to cram too much information into one piece of content. I was on a webinar yesterday watching a lady discuss with this mastermind group something that she was doing, and her offer had there was too many things in it. Too many options, not too many call to actions. But that is a problem too. Sometimes, like if you give people too many options, then they get confused. And a confused mind is not a buying mind. So,
confused mind is not a buying mind.
Right.
I'm writing that one down. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
So it's important to really have one intention. Like, what is the one thing you want people to get from this and do as a result of it? Early on, my mentors taught me this concept of the slippery slide, a greased slide. It's like you imagine your audience, your reader getting on the top of this slide, one of those big ones like you see at the carnivals, where they put you on the rug and you slide down. But that thing is greased, like it's just slippery and then all get out. And so there's no stopping them once they get on there. When they start reading your post or watching your video, you want them to go straight down and arrive at the bottom, with the intention in mind. You don't want them to have detours. So what causes detours? Well, using weird words is a way to cause detours. Somebody's reading something and all of a sudden they see, some big complicated word. And so they go Google that to find out what it means. And now suddenly they're out of your sales message, right?
Yes.
Or if you shift topics and you take them out of whatever emotional state you've been walking them through into a different path and then try and bring them back, that can screw you up too. Now, there's something called a pattern interrupt, which is different. It's where you throw something in for just a moment, like kapow, or, smack your ass right now because what's coming next is going to blow your mind. Something completely unexpected. But you don't take people on like terrible detours because you'll lose them. Remember, we have short attention spans, and with the rise of social media, digital platforms, consumer attention spans are shorter than ever. So, copywriters and marketers, you got to deliver these concise, engaging, impactful messages, and trying to cram too much stuff in there will ruin you. Another thing is you can fall in love with your stuff and, not want to change it, even if it's not working. And, don't fall in love with your stuff. Be willing to try something different, and also test. Testing is really crucial. I know I mentioned that before, but sometimes I've put things out and I thought this is going to be a slam dunk, and it bombed. And I was like, what in the heck?
What's wrong with these people?
How? And so I try something different and I'm like, this is not going to work. And it works. That happens. But distractions is another one, right? It's easy to get distracted with stuff. This is more like the information overload. But when you're trying to think about like, what should I do next? Where should I go? Sometimes when you're writing, people that are not copywriters, and I guess even copywriters, they have writer's block. And oftentimes the writer's block is really due to confusion. You haven't done enough research. When you really know your topic, things just start to flow. I mean, I bet you and everyone that is listening to this, if we asked you to talk about your favorite thing, you would be able to speak for 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes without any kind of problems whatsoever. Because you're passionate about it, you have a deep knowledge of it. It's the same with writing. So make sure that you understand what you're writing about before you get into the writing, and then it'll just flow.
Yeah. I could talk about Harry Potter all day long. So I hear you. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And, J.K. Rowling is one of my entrepreneurial role models. Because amazing, just an aside there. But another pitfall that you might get into is asking the opinions of people that really aren't qualified to judge your writing.
That makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. So really what you want to do as someone who's writing content for your own company is you might give your copy to someone who is not even a friend or a family member and say, read this and let me know what you think. But don't tell them that you wrote it. See what their reaction is. Now, if they give it back to you and say, how do I get that? Or where do I sign up? Then you've got a slam dunk, right? If they're like, it's boring, or I didn't like this part, that is great feedback. But if you go to your wife, if you go to your partners in your business, either you're going to get a big pat on the back because it's awesome, or you're going to get criticism because everybody wants to be important. Like, I don't think that's going to work, or I don't like this. So be careful who you go to for advice and feedback on whatever it is that you're creating. The ultimate test is you put it out in front of the market and you see what happens, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. We call it test, analyze, optimize. It's the same thing. So, you have done a lot of cool shit. You know what, guys? If you can't handle a few cuss words here and there, turn me off, say a prayer for me. It's just kind of who we are, right? So we're real. We're authentic. Right. So
right.
That's who we are. We've done a lot of cool shit, Tony. What are some of the projects or clients that you are most proud of?
Well, obviously, I'm really proud of the work that we did at Piranha Marketing. When I left, we were working on something that grew into what is now the Genius Network. And, Joe's Genius Network is probably the most expensive mastermind networking group on the planet. I could be wrong, but it's definitely well attended. So proud of the work that I did at Piranha. That was foundational. And I changed an awful lot of lives. I worked primarily with service people. And I've got a half a dozen of these guys that I'm still friends with today. And this started in 1995. So, do the math. And all of these guys are, successful in different realms. Most of them moved out of carpet cleaning and went into other areas. Some of them are very high paid consultants. But the work that I did with Dean Graziosi, we had a couple launches that did $2.5 million and $3.5 million, and those are real numbers. They weren't like, oh yeah, it cost us $1.9 million and we netted, 2.5. It was like that was the profit. Massive. This is a tough question.
It is. It is because it's very hard to judge your own work, right? Like it's, for us, we get excited about something and then we're like, oh, maybe I didn't do a good enough job, or, oh, I'm not in love with this anymore. So it's hard, at least for me and you, we're humble, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, that wasn't a big deal, but come on. I mean, you helped make this guy $1 million a week. That is insane, mind blowing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I have another client that used to be in the nutraceutical business, and he's still my friend today. I haven't done a project with him for a couple years, but I just talked to him last week. My first independent client that did not come from a referral from anybody that knew me in the year 2000. I wrote him a sales letter for a supplement that he created, and he put it online as it was like a free report, which had a call to action to buy the product.
Okay.
And this is the year 2000. All right. So you think about this. He generated $260,000 in the first month from a $59 product.
Boom.
Yes.
Okay.
And I went on to create
here, and I talk so much and just raise him up, right? Because The man is good.
Yeah, that was a big win for me because it was completely out of my realm of experience. I'd never written about nutraceuticals. I also love the work that I did for Beverly International. Beverly International is one of the oldest bodybuilding nutritional companies in America. They're based in Kentucky. Lots of people don't know about them except, real hardcore bodybuilders. All natural products, fantastic. We did some phenomenal work in there. In fact, one of my buddies, a guy named Doberman Dan, who's another fabulous copywriter, he was writing for a competitor at the time. And years later when we met, he said to me, he goes, I didn't know that you were the guy writing for Beverly. And every month when those magazines would come out, I'd be like, who is the SOB that's writing these ads that's kicking our ass? And it was funny. Like, I had no idea who he was, who was writing any of that stuff. I really wasn't paying attention, but we had some massive wins with Beverly and built our company. Paula Abdul was great. I worked with her, helped Paula, but her project never launched. Our piece of it got finished, but things fell apart somewhere on her end. But she was wonderful. I mean, amazing person. But what I was about to say is that I like working with some of these less known people because, well, it's fun to make these great wins for people that are already successful. It's really amazing to create something for somebody who has a great idea, a great business, a great product, but just needed the right marketing message.
You like to help small businesses, small to medium businesses grow, right?
That's
to the point of the Graziosis and the Beverlys. You kind of want to get them there, right? Like that's your intention. All right, so I asked this question to everybody, and I'm sure you already have the answer. Who do you think is the most innovative entrepreneur that influences you and why? And you can't say J.K. Rowling. You already said that.
Okay. Who influences me now and why? Oh.
I know. Everybody goes,
It's interesting. I really don't follow anybody hardcore. Elon Musk inspires me just because the guy is so out of the box, he's just, I don't know if he's crazy or genius.
He could be both.
But he inspires me. I mean, just look at the things that he's done. And there's all kinds of controversy about, who he's aligned with and this and that. But I just look at what he's created, and you can look back on this video in decades and say Tony was right or he was wrong. But I think Tesla is going to be an Amazon one of these days. All right. I mean, just look what he did with the rockets. Nobody else has even done that. Hasn't even come close. It's been years since he put the first one up. Jeff Bezos, of course, is a tremendous inspiration. In my mind, I had this image that I saw years ago of him sitting at this little rickety desk with a handwritten sign that said Amazon up on the wall, working on this dream. He's innovated and done all kinds of amazing things. And Seth Godin's another guy that I've loved for years. I still follow him. I've read most of his books. I really resonate with folks that care about doing good in the world.
They're not just there for the money. They're not chasing money, right? Yeah. They're there to fill a need.
Right.
Tony, I absolutely adore you. You know this. Now everybody else knows this. I'd like to know, where can our listeners find you?
Well, I would love for your listeners who are interested in learning how to write better copy, whether you're doing that as a career or you're just doing it because you want to write better love letters to people or you want to sell anything, I'd love them to go to grabtonysbook.com and get a free copy of my book. It's just a free plus shipping offer. You pay the $9.99 and I'll ship the book to you. You can go to Amazon and pay $20 for it. I also have an option there that if you get an autographed copy for $7, then I donate that to charity, and it goes to my late mother-in-law, the Carol Stark Foundation, which she's a phenomenal human being. Also, my team of copywriters can be found at thecopyavengers.com. So those are the two places to find me. And if you want to connect with me on a more personal level, you can go to tonyscard.com, and that's got all my info there.
Oh my goodness. I think this is literally my favorite podcast so far. Tony, I really appreciate you joining me. I know how busy you are and the fact that you took the time out to chat with me. Everybody look at his background. You notice this is literally Tony's start, just like work
suits in the back.
He's got the suits in the back. So, I mean, if he can be that creative with a background image, just imagine what he can do with your content. Tony, I appreciate you. I love you. We'll talk soon.
Love you too, Erica. Thanks so much. Appreciate having me on.
Wow, what a great episode. I hope you had as much fun as I did. If you want more of this goodness, make sure you subscribe so that you get notifications for future podcasts. And if you found value from this, please share it with others. You can visit our website at cwgdigital.com. This is Erica Bailey. I am your host, and I will see you next time.